Honorable Vice Chancellor, Birla Global University, Professor P.P. Mathur, Distinguished Chief Guest, C.A. Narendra Kumar Mishra, Advisor to Jindal Steel Odisha, former Executive Director Finance and CFO Tata Steel Europe, Registered Independent Director with India's Ministry of Corporate, Consultant with GLG USA, Alpha Sites and Pro Sapiens. Revered Registrar, Professor B.K. Das, esteemed panelist, respected Dean, Birla School of Management, Professor Parmeshwar Nayak, respected deans of other schools, Conclave convener, Professor Pradipta Kumar Sanyal, Professor Satyakam Mishra, and Professor Vishwajit Acharya, faculty members and participants. A very good morning to all of you. I am Monica Verma, a student of MK first year, specializing in the area of finance, and it is my privilege to welcome you all to the inaugural session of the Finance Conclave on role and challenges of finance professionals in changing business environment. Welcome all. Before we start the program, as is customary, let us have the rendering of University's Kulgeet.
Do we have to stand up for this?
Not necessarily now.
तनी अपनी देखती आकाश है
सुबह न्यारी शाम अपनी श्रेष्ठ जगमग धार है विरासत तनी अपनी देखती आकाश है उत्कल चमन उन्मुक्त सा
Thank you, everyone. Now, I would request Professor Pradipta Kumar Sanyal, the Conclave convener, to give the welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Monica. Monica, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Thank you. Esteemed Vice Chancellor, sir, esteemed Registrar, sir, respected Dean, School of Management, respected Dean, School of Commerce, and respected Deans of other schools. Revered Chief Guest, Narendra, sir, a distinguished speaker for this conclave, my dear faculty colleagues, staff members, students and audience. It's my honor to welcome you all to this one-day finance conclave on role and challenges of finance professionals in changing business environment. We all understand the importance of finance, whether we talk about personal finance or corporate finance. Managing cash flows have always been a challenge, and it would be more challenging when we work in a changing environments. Recent pandemic has also given us a different dimension to manage finance. Adoption of technology takes finance to a different level. During this decade, fintech and financial analytics will lead to technology-based finance. Finance professionals, particularly students aspiring to take finance as their career, will have to adapt these changes. Corporate finance driven by technology will be more prominent in coming years. And I believe that industry is looking forward to adoption of more technology in managing their finances. So as to match the industry's expectation, technology-based curriculum development in finance subjects would be more relevant. So academia and industry are required to work in sync to develop such curriculum to make new age finance professional. So I think this conclave will provide us enough opportunity to listen to our distinguished speaker, to understand the role and challenges of finance professional that they are going to face during the next coming years. And before I conclude, I take this opportunity to thank our chief guest and all distinguished speakers for accepting my invitation for this one-day conclave, in spite of having their busy schedule. A very special thanks to Narendra sir for accepting my request to be a part of this inaugural session. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank all.
Thank you, sir, for the warm welcome. Now, I would like to invite Professor Parmeshwar Nair, Dean Birla School of Management, to introduce the theme of the conclave. Sir, please.
Monica, am I audible now?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Very good morning to everybody present in this occasion, esteemed Vice Chancellor of Birla Global University, Professor Mathur, our chief guest, esteemed Dr. N.K. Misra ji, other dignitaries present. Honorable Registrar Dr. B.K. Das ji, Professor Sanyal, other deans of the schools, Professor Maharana, and my colleagues, faculty colleagues, students, and other invited guests present in this conclave. I am given the task to introduce the theme of the conference, which is a finance conference, and I am a person from HR. Always HR person is found not very relevant to talk about finance. But let me try with whatever little knowledge I have or no-knowledge I have, but I can give a HR perspective to this conclave theme. So theme of the conference is finance professionals' role and challenges in the changing business environment. Ladies and gentlemen, all of you know that changes in the macroeconomic environment impact business operations greatly. As a consequence, there are changes in the strategies and priorities of business. The more complex the economic system, the more complex the businesses, the more complex the interaction between the economic players and the global economy, though more uncertainties we have to face, particularly in the turbulent times like pandemic. The more complex the role of managers, particularly the financial professionals. So there is a need for understanding how the finance functions have changed or adapted to these complexities and uncertainties, and how the company's board and CFOs have approached these challenges. How do they strategize to adapt to this new structure of the financial operations or departments, and how to mix the skills they chose to have in their financial professional teams. All of us know that COVID-19 pandemic has affected the growth of economy globally in general, and definitely the finance in particular. So changes and challenges that took place in this economic environment in the turbulent time in pandemic have definitely broadened the role of finance professionals. If their basic responsibility is just to do the financial reporting or financial planning or capital budgeting or capital structure, their roles have changed. It has become more strategic in dimensions and all. So in addition, they have a critical role to play in communicating more professionally today, not only with the investors, but with the board, what I feel. So in this context, in view of all this background, I think the theme chosen for this conclave is very apt. So this conclave, as I understand, aims at actually creating a platform for the students and finance professionals and non-professional finance professionals also to deliberate on those challenges and current economic context, and the how the finance functions are going to be reformed, and learn how the role of finance professionals have a new dimensions in this kind of transformation of the finance functions. Thus, the conclave is meant to address not any specific, but a different dimensions of finance. So in the objectives kept for this conclave to discuss and deliberate the challenges of financial professionals have been, I think, in particularly in the era of transformatory kind of a era, and to discuss what will be the next level of changes that will happen in the area of corporate finance, or as Professor Sanel was saying, and banking or insurance. And in order to do justice to these objectives, I think the sub-themes kept for this conclave this pre-lunch and post-lunch session, that pre-lunch session is new landscape for finance professionals, and the post-lunch session is the challenges for finance professionals. I think this conclave is going to really create a lot of vibration, a lot of interest in the audience and the people who are from the finance background. I wish this conclave a great success, and I hope I am able to introduce the theme to you. If not, I think the subsequent speakers will deliberate on it. And I welcome the chief guest and other guests present here on behalf of the School of Management of this Global University, and wish this program a great success. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to introduce the subject, which I'm not a knowledgeable person on this. Thank you very much, Monica.
Thank you, sir, for introducing the theme of the conclave aptly and comprehensively. And now I take this opportunity to invite Professor Samson Moharana, Dean, Birla School of Commerce, Birla Global University, to share his wisdom and address the audience. Sir, please.
Good morning to all the honored guests. Our Vice Chancellor, Professor P.P. Mathur, Registered Professor B.K. Das, our Chief Guest, C.A. Narendra Kumar Mishra, Dean School of Management, Professor Naik and Professor Sanel. I thank Professor Naik and Professor Sanel for giving me this opportunity to share my viewpoints about the topic. We know that finance, there is some amount of finance in the life of each and every one of us. either as a borrower or a spender or a financier or a facilitator. In a corporate, you cannot find any particular business decision which is not linked to finance. It's a very important decision. There was a time when technical people were occupying the top post, maybe CEO or CMD in the organization. But now we find the CFOs are being promoted as CMDs, and this has happened in Odisha in a large PSU. There is a large scale recruitment of finance professionals nowadays. Everywhere you find, finance is a dynamic discipline, and it keeps on changing with the changes in the financial ecosystem. When the financial institutions are changing, financial market is changing, financial instruments are changing, financial regulations are changing, financial risks are changing, it is but natural that the role and responsibility of the finance professionals will also change. Now we find this finance professionals, they are taking strategic decisions having long-term implications in the organizations, like expansion, modernization, mergers, acquisition, corporate restructuring, fundraising, etc. These developments point to the fact that these are very uncertain and turbulent economy. And finance professionals, they are playing a very important role. They have to ensure that the growth momentum is maintained in an organization. In each and every corporate, we have an audit committee. I am a member of the audit committee of different corporations. That looks after the entire gamut of finance of an organization, how the money is coming, how it is been spent, all these things. Now, investment and financing continue to be the major function of a finance manager, but the nature and scope of the investment and financing, they have changed beyond recognition. In fact, there are many aspects where we don't talk about the routine aspect of investment and business. In a liberalized market, in a globalized market, the finance manager continuously, he is facing challenges. We always talk about that all type of financial decisions have some goal. And one goal, we call it, earlier it was profit, now it is profit, wealth addition, now it is also wealth addition. But we are now slowly shifting to another important goal of finance. We call it a sustainability. We call it economic sustainability and financial sustainability. A finance manager, if a CFO, he has to ensure that the corporation is sustainable, because we have seen many cases that companies have collapsed even after earning billions and billions dollars of profit. The important challenges which they are facing, to me, it is the increasing regulatory compliance requirement, maybe the disclosure requirement in terms of ESG, that is very important nowadays, and all other type of non-financial activities. Managing a new type of financial risk also is there. And in a volatile market, they have to monitor how the shareholders are getting benefit, because all stakeholders, they are looking at the company, and probably the CFO is a person who has idea about everything, about marketing, about technology, about all other aspects, including HR also. So this periodic changes. Very recently, the inflation rate has gone up in India. Maybe it is 8 years high level. Now, finance manager concerned, it will lead to a cost escalation, disruption in the supply chain. So they are devising strategy every now and then how to face this type of challenge. And another challenge, which I think speakers before me, they have said, is digitalization. You cannot expect any type of financial decision nowadays without the help of technology, starting from artificial intelligence to cloud computing, etc. We are using the technology because that has led to improvement in our productivity, reduction of the cost, expansion of the market, increased customer satisfaction. But also we have to ensure that technology has cost implications. Whether we are able to recoup the cost, many times we find that technology gets changed so fast that we do not have time to recoup the cost, and it gets, we have to go for new technology to survive in the market. Technology also has associated risk, because all of us are, we know about the security aspect, about the cyber security and other threat perception associated security. A finance manager nowadays, he looks after finance and non-financial activities. That is the biggest challenge for a finance manager. Earlier, he was looking at only finance and a very narrow viewpoint of finance, because each and every decision of the organization has implication on finance. So he has to also look at other non-financial activities and how impact the finance. So at the end, I will say that a finance function is full of challenges. It is full of changes, starting from reporting, analysis, financing, dividend, etc., etc. And a finance manager nowadays, in a high-tech world, he has to ensure that he knows the subject, and all the members of the finance team, they continuously upgrade their skill, both soft skill and also other type of technological skills. Otherwise, they will get obsolete. A finance professional has to keep in touch what changes are taking place in the market every day, and also he has to predict what sort of changes may likely to happen in the days to come, in the months to come. Studying finance, analyzing the finance, teaching finance, and doing research in finance has become difficult nowadays. I say it is a challenging job for a finance manager working in an organization, for a finance professor teaching finance in the classroom, or a scholar, research scholar who is doing research in finance. But when there is a challenge, there is an opportunity. And it is a very, very important topic which the School of Management has decided, and I must congratulate them. I think all the deliberations will be very productive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, moving on, it is my privilege to invite Professor B.K. Das, Registrar, Birla Global University, to address the audience. Sir,
Hello. Yeah. Am I audible?
yes, sir, you're audible.
Good morning to everybody present in this financial conclave. Honorable Vice Chancellor, my faculty colleagues, respected deans, and most important, today's Chief Guest, Chartered Accountant, Sri Narendra Kumar Mishra ji, all students, and ladies and gentlemen. This is a very interesting subject in the sense, without finance, nothing can move in today's world. And Professor Maharana has very elaborately dealt with this topic, leaving no room for me to add anything. But as a ex-banker, I would like to say something very closely related to banking, where the Department of Finance, which was not existing many years back, has now come up. Previously, it was a department, accounts department. Now, most of the banks have a finance department. The reason is that the finance management has become so complex. It's very difficult to manage in the normal thing which was happening earlier. With the introduction of Basel norms in the banking sector, the finance people are always on their toes to ensure the capital adequacy of the bank is maintained at the prescribed level. Otherwise, there will be a lot of regulatory repercussion on that. Again, this introduction of international financial reporting standard, it also added further complication or more workload on the finance people to adhere to the new standard of reporting. This is two things I have observed that put a lot of challenges to the people managing finance in the banking sector. It must have happened in other sectors also. And that apart, the finance people, they have to do a very tightrope exercise, like asset liability. That mismatch occurs very frequently in financial organizations, and he has to be on his toes to ensure that the balance is maintained. So what I mean to say that when there is a excess cash, excess resources in the organization, it has to be properly deployed so that it doesn't remain idle. It has to earn income. That is the problem of excess cash, excess resources. And the other side is shortage of resources. You have to raise money from the market. You have to raise in different way. For that also, new instruments are being devised by the finance people in the hybrid capital, tier 1, tier 2. So all this, this is the invention or whatever the innovative ideas, how to raise capital. But raising is one issue, then managing and managing it properly is another issue. So day by day, this is getting more and more complex. But the biggest challenge today, it's not a challenge, I say it is, the finance people have to change the art of managing finance. What Professor Maharana also hinted with the coming of technology, some of the art and craft of the traditional finance people is getting outdated, and most of the finance people have to be technically knowledgeable, technically educated to handle the finance. For example, there are so many software are now coming. A chartered accountant need not do everything. You put the data, it will give you the all the analysis, whatever is required for a balance sheet analysis, it automatically produces. So that manual thing is getting replaced by different software. Added to that, the artificial intelligence, which is giving you the future roadmap. But all the same, the role of finance people cannot be undermined, because behind every technology, the people are there. So that with coming years, there will be more challenge in the sense you will be requiring technically driven finance people. So maybe there will be a combination of both the technical side and the finance side. A new breed of financial experts will emerge. In fact, they have already emerged, but it's in the world of evolution, fast moving, fast changing world, you'll be trying a new breed of financial people. I don't want to say much because experts are there to speak on this topic. I can say that I'm very happy to be a part of this conclave, and I'm very much thankful to Professor Sanyal and his team, and of course Professor Nayak, the Dean of the School of Management, who have arranged this function today. And I wish this all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It is always a privilege to hear from you. Now, with great honor and privilege, I introduce our chief guest, CA Narendra Kumar Mishra, advisor to Jindal Steel Odisha, former Executive Director Finance and CFO Tata Steel Europe, registered independent director with India's Ministry of Corporate, consultant with GLG USA, Alpha Sites and ProSapiens. Sir has over 40 years of experience in global steel industry, having handled strategies, mergers and acquisitions, and various aspects of finance function, including financial planning and control, in his tenure with Tata Steel. Mr. Mishra was the ED and CFO and the member of main board of Tata Steel Europe for nearly 10 years. Tata Steel Europe, a $10 billion turnover company headquartered in UK, has its main manufacturing plants in UK and Netherlands, besides the downstream units in France, Germany, USA, and other countries. A unique feature of Mr. Mishra's experience is that he has been a part of high growth journey in Tata Steel India for the first 30 years of his career, and has been a part of large business in mature economy of Europe thereafter. He has extensive experience as international non-executive directors in companies registered in UK, Netherlands, Australia, Canada, Singapore, Thailand, Mauritius, and India. He is also a member and chair of Audit Committee and member of Risk Management Committees. Sir was a non-executive director in National Education Board in Occupational Safety and Health, a UK-based charity. A chartered accountant by qualification, Mr. Mishra has also completed a 2-year, 5-module general management program from INSEAD, France. He was a visiting faculty in XLRI Jamshedpur and is a former member of Institute of Directors, London. Sir is currently an advisor to Jindal Steel and Power Group, based out of New Delhi, and has been a part of large acquisition in Africa in recent times for Jindal Group. With this, may I now request our esteemed chief guest to give the inaugural address. Sir, please.
Thank you, Monica, for a very detailed introduction, and good morning to everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here. While I can't see all the students who are attending this, but I'm sure they're sitting in front of their computers and listening to all this. It's great pleasure to be with so many young participants who will be future of finance, not just in India, but maybe globally also. Wherever I have traveled, I find there are two professions in which there is significant presence of Indians. One is medical profession. So if you go to UK, you'll find half the doctors are Indian. And second is the bankers. So if you go to Canary Wharf in London, which is the business district, it will feel like that as if you have come to India. So all of you, best of luck. I see that there are some very good sessions lined up between now and evening, and you'll all benefit from that. So happy learning to all of you. Now I've got a dilemma here between Professor Nayak, Professor Marana, and Professor Das. They've said everything that I wanted to say. So there's very little left to say. So but I still have to speak because Dr. Sanyal asked me to be present. So theme is role and challenges for finance professionals. And as Monica said, I have 40 years experience. So in 1980, I passed my CA. That's 42 years back. None of the students would have been born by that time. And I think many others also may have been only toddlers at that time. So in these 42 years, the role has changed dramatically. But the key question is, what causes the change of role? And I'll share some of my experiences. So first, kind of a pen picture of what existed in 1980 when I kind of came into this profession and joined Tata Steel in 1981. So at that time, there were no computers, even calculators, electronic calculators had just made an entry. Not everyone had. We used to have those manual facet calculators, which used to do only addition. India was a closed economy. Imports were severely restricted. Foreign investment was restricted. Outward foreign investment was not even thought of at that time. Markets were completely financial markets were completely closed. India was under what we used to call at that time license Raj. Even if you want to produce, you had to get permission. So very archaic, and there is history, there's reason for that. We came out of British rule, and then the government at that time, Pandit Nehru's government at that time, decided to have planned development. Now it had its advantages, but it also had its disadvantages. It restricted the growth. So economy, I mean, there are many more things which I can describe at that time, but the long and short of it is that life was very simple. There were no variables. An accountant at that time meant, or a chartered accountant or a finance professional at that time meant an accountant or an auditor. Financial markets did not have all these fancy instruments which we have today, whether it's hybrid. I think Professor Nayak talked about, Professor Maharana talked about hybrid, etc. None of those things existed in India. Life was, as I said, very simple. I was just thinking of airline. I will have to travel to Bombay. Today, you have surge prices. Between the time you log on to the website of an airline and you book, the fare changes. But in those days, nothing changed. There was a fixed ticket, like in railways. So, as I said, life was simple, but obviously it was not exciting, if I can say in a way. So the first thing which I wanted to cover is, what are the factors that influence the role of a finance function? Why it changed dramatically, and when it changed dramatically from a very sedate and quiet function in 1980 or even before that to a suddenly very kind of active and very vibrant function. So in my assessment, the that dramatic change happened in 1990s, early 1990s, when India was in a difficult situation on foreign exchange front, and under P.V. Narasimha Rao's government, Professor Manmohan Singh became the finance minister. He decided to open up the economy to the global competition, global activities. That was in 1991, if I remember, and reforms started. So currency, which was initially controlled, he had some partial convertibility was the term which was introduced, and then it became almost fully convertible, other than for capital accounts. Now that, why did that change? Because the role of finance professional, as I think one of the previous speakers mentioned, is a function of the ecosystem. So economic ecosystem changed. When the economic ecosystem changed, the demands on the finance professionals changed. More mature the economy, there'll be more demands on finance professionals. So if it is a public sector unit driven economy that was there when I said in 80s and in all of 80s and before that, it became an economy where private sector and foreign investors were playing a defining role. And at that time, then government had to, because foreign investment will not come. I mean, if you think that in an African country, for example, let me just take a name, Sudan or Nigeria, there'll be foreign investment going, it will not, because the systems are not strong enough for foreign investors to feel comfortable about their money. So that's why India had to then make changes. And the first major change was this introduction of SEBI. SEBI in 1992, I think. When SEBI came, that started this whole exercise about transparency and reporting. So first thing which happened, which was a great burden on all of us when at that time I was in India, that quarterly reporting by listed companies and the quarterly limited reviews, which are still continuing, and then reporting of consolidated financials, and there were several things which happened. Setting up of risk management committees, CSR committees, investor protection committees, several committees of the boards. So, and then in the annual reports, there has to be an MD&A, which was a very detailed description as compared to a simple director's report in earlier times, all details available. So that is where the kind of defining change happened for the finance professional. One shot, that was a major event which changed the lives of all of us. New company law came in 2013. As I said, more transparency. I think Professor Morana talked about IFRS or alignment with IFRS. Otherwise, Indian accounting standards, there were a handful of them. They were very locally focused, but then they changed and aligned with international practices. And the other thing which we have to watch for when we look at why role of finance professional changed, and that is very important when I come to the next topic, which is threats and challenges to the profession. And that we have to look at what are the mega trends. So mega trends at that time were globalization, urbanization, which meant more services, digital, which is information technology, and information technology was one area which again made a massive change to the accountants' lives and finance professionals' lives, because then things started getting done centrally. The skill was taken out. Today, as a CFO, I never looked at the accounts. I mean, it was all done in the shared services center. So Tata Steel Europe had a shared services center which was catering to all the requirements, even data visualization, charts, reports, everything came from them. So the role in which I used to thrive, or we used to thrive, which was accounting and entries and taxation, all the transactional activities shifted away. It kind of moved away. And this, I'll elaborate on this when I come to threats and challenges, because that's posing a very major challenge for the finance professionals in future. I think one of the previous speakers talked about finance professionals becoming CEOs, which is right. It's been happening globally, but there's also a downside of it, or a negative side of this, which I'll possibly cover. So long and short of it is that one decision of opening up the economy, which has continued from that time and is continues till now, had caused the shift in the role of accountants. So today we have large conglomerates. In my time, at that time, Tata, Birla, JK, they were the big groups. At that time, they were considered big, but if you look back, they were very small. They were all India focused, no international presence, practically no international investors in them. But today, if you look at it in the lifetime, what Reliance has created or what Adani has created, I'm not getting into how it got created, but large conglomerates have been created which have significant foreign investment, and foreign investors do need transparency. They do need assurance that everything is going on as it should. So if I were to look at what will happen now, I mean, how will the real role change? Then again, I would look at the mega trends. And mega trends today are cryptocurrencies. Now, the accounting standards do address this subject, but in a very, very simple way today. The IFRS also, I think, talks about accounting. But I think of a situation where 10 years from now, or whatever, 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years from now, the business is done through cryptocurrencies. That will pose major challenges to the finance professionals. Artificial intelligence. More and more technology means more and more specialist work will be taken away. Transactional work will be taken away, much of which has already happened. In countries outside India, a lot of offshoring has happened. The function, I mean, the job has moved not only from the accountants, also from that country away to that country. Professor Nayak talked about the fact that he is an HR professional, but Professor Nayak, my view is that HR has the most important role to play in this growth or development, and that is attracting talent and retaining talent. There is currently the growth of the economy is at a pace where the talent is not keeping pace with it. For good talent, there is massive shortage, not just in India, everywhere. So how to get the right kind of people and then retain them. And this is much more applicable to remote locations. So for example, in my previous company, Tata Steel, which has its main activities in Jamshedpur or had main activities in Jamshedpur, now a plant also in Kalinganagar in Odisha, it's nearly impossible to attract a chartered accountant. They don't want to come and work in Jamshedpur, which is a very, very decent city for those of you who might have visited. But they want to be in metros. They want to be in Kolkata, Mumbai, or places where they have nightclubs and whatnot. And rightly so. I mean, if they're earning, they should have avenues to spend money. So even in metros, while one can attract talent, attrition is very high because there are more and more opportunities. If one was to look at the finance community in Bombay, I mean, they can find job from one morning to another morning. So I think that's going to be the second challenge, which is finding the talent, cultivating the talent, and retaining. And I was reading a McKinsey survey some time back, which says finance professionals' role is no longer finance. They are each, on an average, the CFOs are handling 6 functions. So IT is reporting to them, procurement is reporting to them. In fact, to me, when I was in Europe, procurement function reported to me. So I had to split my time between the accounting and treasury and rest of it and procurement. And that also included strategic procurement, which was global procurement of raw materials, iron ore, coal, etc. So the scope has changed. Finance professionals today are not only doing the core finance function or core accounting function, and which is what brings me to this threat about them losing out, because non-finance professionals are making entry into this business. My deputy in Tata Steel Europe, a gentleman, John Phillips, he was not an accountant. He was not a chartered accountant. He was not MBA finance. He was an economist. And through training and through learning, he rose to the position of my deputy, because most of the accounting work, technical work, there were people to do that. His job was, I think, as one of the previous speakers mentioned, more to look at strategic big picture things and strategic decisions and what are the growth plans and capex plans, etc. So while on one hand, there is an opportunity for finance professionals to occupy the positions of CEOs, there's a reverse of that, and there is a downside, not a downside, I shouldn't say a downside, but there's another dimension that others can make entry. I also know many people, including currently in Tata Steel headquarters in Bombay, who are not trained finance professionals, but who are occupying very senior positions. One of the vice presidents, a lady in Tata Steel, she is not an accountant. She's an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, but she is holding a vice president's position, which is second to the board level. So I think that is something where finance professionals, and it's my advice to all those who are listening, the students who are listening, is that they don't have to restrict themselves to only the finance. They have to look at things which are broader, beyond finance. And key amongst them is all this digital thing, and also IT and procurement and several technical aspects. Otherwise, there is a possibility that there will be more and more kind of invasion from non-finance professionals into finance field. What are the other things other challenges which may be there? So there's another trend, recent trend, which most of you might have noticed. Annual reports are now being called integrated reports. So there is this International Integrated Reporting Council. Tata Steel is a member, so I've attended several of their sessions. And Tata Steel does reporting on integrated accounting format, which is basically about 6 capitals, and which are human capital and financial capital and manufacturing capital. There are 6 of them. So that again, reporting is changing, and it is again talking about more transparency. And then I think Professor Naik talked about sustainability. Now that's another thing which is coming. Some of you might have noticed that this year, I think a few months back, General Steel, JSW, not General Steel and Power, JSW issued a global bond, $1 billion global bond, which is called Sustainability Linked Bond, SLB. And in that SLB, which was issued Regus in Section 144A of USA, they have promised that, I think coupon is some 5.05% or something, but they have promised certain parameters on sustainability. If they are not met within a certain period, then the interest rate on the bond will go up by, I think, 0.35%. So 5.05 will become 5.4%. So these sustainability linked bonds, if you were to attract the money from overseas, then these could be the trend in future, which means that finance professionals will have to get into the whole business of sustainability, carbon, and whether it's hydrogen and decarbonization and carbon capture and COP26 and so on and so forth, to understand what kind of targets, because it will evolve. Today, JSW has given some targets on their own unilaterally, but gradually time will come where investors will start demanding that this should be the target if you want me to invest money in your bond or in your equity. So that's the second thing which is going to happen. I think the third thing is known to everyone, which is cyber frauds. They are going to get worse. Be 100% sure. They are going to make life for everyone very difficult. There was an example, I think 2 years back, when they hacked into the blast furnace of ThyssenKrupp, Germany, and that almost stopped their operations. So, but the bank accounts of my own company were hacked. And fortunately, no damage was done because it was discovered in time, because there are lots of, so it's again, it's again a cat and mouse game where one is chasing the other. So companies are strengthening their systems, but others are one up next day. I think the other thing which is not yet in India, but has become very, very prominent in West, and especially in UK, one of them is data privacy laws. The data privacy, personal data has become very, very important. I can give you an example there. My wife had a Vodafone connection, and I went to Vodafone store saying that I want to know when it expires so that I can renew. And they said, no, your wife has to come. We can't share your wife's data with you. So that's the level. And because penalties are very high. So if I were to go to my daughter's school and ask for some information, they will say, no, they'll not give. Either you get an authorization or you come with her or that kind of thing. And when I'm saying information, I'm not meaning general information. I'm talking about her details, etc. So data privacy is something which is gradually, I think the law is still there in India, but it has not been implemented as strictly. Then there's another law which has come in the West and is becoming more and more common. And in UK, it is facilitation of tax evasion law, where so companies so far and in India today, they are accountable for or they can maybe levy penalty if they do tax evasion. But under this law, even if they are seen indirectly as facilitating tax evasion, they can be penalized unless their systems are proper and they have taken proper care. And an example of that, which is very trivial example, but happened with us, which I must quote, is that some company requested officially that their bank account should be changed from a UK bank account to a tax haven bank account. And the first question which was asked was, does it mean that we are helping them in evading taxes? Now, it's not something that we are doing. They may be doing what they are doing, nobody knows. And then we had to take a legal opinion, and then we said, no, we need your board resolution, etc., etc. So this law about facilitating tax evasion is again, and these things will come to India. They may come in 10 years, 20 years, but they will gradually come. And similarly, there's a law which has been introduced across European Union, which is on anti-bribery. Again, I believe that there's a law in India, but it's a question of enforcement and implementation, where if an employee of the company goes and bribes someone, the company is held responsible and will be penalized. Now, again, in all these cases, the company's defense is that they had proper systems and they took adequate care, etc. But on the ground, for a multinational, somebody sitting in China goes and gives an expensive gift to somebody, which may be construed as a bribe. The company may be answerable to that in UK. So these are some of the challenges which finance professionals will be facing, companies will be facing, but finance professionals. I endorse everything which was said by Professor Nayak and Professor Marana and Dr. Das about various things. So I'm not repeating those. I thought I'll share my first-hand experiences. So in summary, what I will say is that role has changed. Role has changed more because we have become a global economy. More globalization will put more pressure on our financial systems and on finance professionals. We must watch the trends which are happening. Cryptocurrencies, as I said, is one of them, and all these new regulations which will be gradually coming in. They will define how the role changes, and be prepared for those. But that doesn't mean that we should shy away from this. It's a great profession. I've enjoyed it for 42 years, and I'm sure all of you will enjoy once you qualify. Put your heart and soul in your job, and then you're there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I'm sure all the participants will take valuable insights from your experience and knowledge. Now, it is my privilege to invite Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor P.P. Mathur to give his presidential address. Sir, please.
Good morning to all of you. Respected Chief Guest, Sri Narendra Kumar Mishra ji, our Registrar, Dr. B.K. Das, Dean of the School of Management, Professor Nayak, Dean of the School of Commerce, Dr. Samson Marana, Dr. Pradeep Kumar Sanyal, Conclave Convener, all the faculty members of the School of Management, and all the other faculty members, those who are participating in today's program, all the students, participants, and other persons, guests who have joined us, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I'm extremely happy to be part of this financial conclave, and I must congratulate the School of Management for arranging 3 conclaves. The first conclave was HR conclave, the other conclave was marketing conclave, and now there's a finance conclave. And all of them, actually the whole world has changed after pandemic, and all the dimensions of the kind of things which were being done before, they have changed the complete environment. So these discussions would help everybody to understand the kinds of dynamics which it has reached to now. And it is so elaborately and so simply told by our chief guest, Shri Narendra Kumar Mishra ji. And even a very lay person like me could understand very much easily the kind of challenges which the world is facing about. Of course, I am a very lay person. But everybody's somebody has to do with the finance. Everybody has to do something with finance. And in fact, I just want to share with the students that there have been, right from the time immemorial, a great interest about the finances, the money, and how to make money, and how to get the money which you really don't deserve to get it, or it doesn't belong to you. And in that case, if I remember correctly, there was a very almost more than 90 years old novel, Gaban, written by Premchand, and that was also very interesting. And I am sure that some of the students would have read that story, and they would know that how the greed has caused the person to lose the value and then moral values, and then finally get into the problems the hero of the novel gets into. And the other one is the Arcadian's Financial Expert. This is a classical novel or written almost like 70 years ago. And this is the first novel of Arcadian. He has written only 16 novels. And this is the first novel which he got printed abroad, and it was published abroad. And this was, of course, setting a city in Malgudi, and where the bank was, the advisor, the financial advisor was sitting in front of a cooperative bank, and somehow he was helping the people to fill up the forms, and suddenly he started lending money, and what kind of problems he get into. So, and it's not the only thing. So even the authors, they have understood the nitty-gritty of the money and the money lending and the money, how to make the money or how. So I'm sure that, and stories or science fictions, how the money is used, and how the cryptocurrency is used, and how the money is lost, how the money is made. And that's why we need to know basically the how we have to save our money, and how to use the money, and how to manure the money, and when to pluck it out, when the flowers have to be taken, when the fruit has to be taken, and when the whole plant has to be taken. I think these are the very difficult things which any finance person has to look into. And I'm sure that these kinds of the investment, the opening up of the global market in India has changed a lot the finance, because when I went to US before the it was open, and how much different it was there, and how much it is becoming integrated with the world. So I wish that these discussions will help the students to understand the changes which are taking place so dramatically, and money makes the mayor go. So anything happens in the world, the money is to be seen. And people even, I can understand that only two things are very important at this time. One is money, and the other is health. And of course, other things are also there. But money and health is most talked about in the past years. And I wish that the discussions will be very useful for the participants, and the challenges which the professionals are facing would be discussed, and the kind of environment which we are currently working in would be understood by the participants. And I'm really very happy that such great persons and the great topics will be discussed by the great persons in their areas. And the program is very, very comprehensive and very thoughtful. I wish this particular program a great success. And I again, on behalf of the university and my own behalf, welcome Sri Narendra Kumar Mishra ji and all the other panelists, those who would be coming and those who have already joined. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of encouragement and wisdom. Now, I request Honorable Vice Chancellor to kindly felicitate our chief guest with a memento as a token of our respect and appreciation. Sir, please.
Okay, it is only virtual, so I wish we could have shared it with you in person. So this is the very.
Thank you, Professor Mathur. It's absolutely lovely. It's lovely.
And this is the blessing of Lord Jagannath.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'm sure that it reaches you somewhere or other as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
I'm
so
honored
much for accepting our small mementos. And I wish that we can meet personally.
We will. I visit Odisha quite frequently. So one of these visits, I'll come over.
Sure, sure. This will be our pleasure to welcome you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, Monica.
Thank you so much, sir. With this, we have come to the end of this inaugural session. I now request Dr. Anubhare, Professor, Birla Global University, to propose the vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Monica. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor P.P. Mathur, esteemed Chief Guest, C.A. Narendra Kumar Mishra, Advisor to Jindal Steel, Odisha, Professor B.K. Das, Registrar of the University, Professor Samson Maharana, Dean Birla School of Commerce, respected Professor Parameshwar Naik, Dean Birla School of Management and Conclave Chair, Professor Pradipta Kumar Sanyal, Conclave Convener, faculty colleagues and dearest students. Good morning and a warm greetings to all of you. I feel privileged to have been asked to extend a vote of thanks. On behalf of the university, I express my profound gratitude to C.A. Narendra Kumar Mishra for giving his consent to grace this occasion, and in spite of his extremely busy schedule, and delivering such an enlightening and engaging talk. So thank you very much for speaking from your rich experiences, highlighting on the factors and trends that have brought forth the massive changes in the areas of finance and the roles of financial professionals, for deliberating on the threats and challenges and how even the HRs play a very key role in this changing time, advising students not to limit themselves, but to look beyond finance. I also thank immensely the Vice Chancellor of the University, Professor P.P. Mathur, for addressing the audience with his words of wisdom and drawing from his knowledge of the classics. Professor Mathur very wittily remarked that everyone on the planet understands the nitty-gritty of money. And he highlighted on the two very important aspects of life. One is health and the other one is money. Thank you, sir, for your constant support and to make this program to successful one. And I would like to thank Professor Parameshwar Naik for introducing the theme of the conclave with such clarity and depth. Thank you, sir, for throwing your insightful perspective on the topic, for highlighting how the turbulent period has brought forth the changes in all the areas all the dimensions of financial area. I'm immensely thankful to Professor Samson Maharana for addressing the audience and sharing his rich wisdom on the topic, and throwing light on the important issues like financial sustainability, technology, and the challenging role of finance manager. It's always a fascinating and joy to listen to you, sir. I'm also thankful to the Registrar of the University, Professor B.K. Das, for his address, drawn from his rich professional experience and deliberating on the challenges of finance, on standards of reporting to managing resources. But the biggest challenge is the adoption of new technology. Sir, words will not be enough for your invaluable advice and the guidance in organizing this program and all other programs throughout the year. I'm also grateful to all the deans for their active involvement. I'm deeply thankful to all the delegates and esteemed speakers who are present here. I thank all the faculty members. Special thanks to the Department of Finance, Professor Sanyal, the Conclave convener, his team, Dr. Satyakam Mishra and Dr. Biswajit Acharya for coordinating this event so smoothly. I thank from the core of my heart all the administrative staff for extending their support and making us available with all the resources, not for this event alone, but all the events throughout the year. I grab this opportunity to thank all the student volunteers, Ms. Monica Verma for anchoring this session so well. No program, dear students, is conceivable without you and your involvement. Thank you very much. Once again, I thank all of you for your sincere contribution and attention. With this, we come to the end of this inaugural session. Thank you, everyone, and good day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, everyone, for your active participation. I would request the participants to join back on the same link for the technical sessions. We'll take a short break and we'll start technical session 1 at 11:30. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank
Monica.
you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I'll be leaving now. Okay.